all go through darkness, and it doesn't stop. We can celebrate achievement. Eventually, we're gonna go right back to that peak in our life.
Like, isn't it crazy that God is literally the craziest artist? He makes canvases out of our pain, bro.
You could have all the money in the world. That doesn't matter if your heart's in the wrong place.
There was one specific thing that I was known for growing up, and one specific role that everybody was like, this is what Eric's gonna be. And it was to be a pastor. What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Valley of the Heroic podcast. And today we are jumping into what I'm going to consider, and definitely is going to be, a special episode, because we're going to be unveiling a new soundtrack for the podcast, courtesy of our guest today, and also diving into a little bit of the heart behind the soundtrack. And I think also, in a way, just how our stories are involved, not just in the soundtrack, but in the overall theme of the Valley of the Heroic, and being a hero, what that means within being a Christian, what it means to be everything God has called you to be and to live according to your purpose. So, Anthony, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm so excited to have you on here. I'd love for you to just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, and then let's actually get started with just jumping straight into the track, listening to it, and talking about it a little bit. So tell.
Well, my name is Anthony Rodriguez, and I am a music composer, music mixer, and I've been living through music since the day I was able to touch a drum. And I've been fortunate enough to be raised in church, so a lot of my journey was through music ministries, and today I am working on the professional level, and been fortunate enough to go through that journey. And music has always been my passion. It's still my passion. I'm always reminded of why I started, so that I can continue the journey into my music. And now we're here.
Curious, man, what have been like your biggest like musical influences in your life?
Well, my musical journey was limited because I grew up in church in a legalistic system.
Yeah.
So my thing was Marcus Witt.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, and Christian salsa,
Which is there's not a lot of.
Not a lot of, but there's a few. New York was the mecca of Christian salsa, so I was fortunate enough to kind of, we're in New Jersey, so across the river we had in the 80s, Christian salsa was established, and so in Puerto Rico we had salsa artists such as David and Abraham.
Loved them.
So when they came out, obviously the distribution came through New York, through here, so we had cassette tapes. So between Marcus Witt and
aged yourself a little bit there.
Yeah, brother. So I wasn't, I didn't know who Luis Miguel was. I didn't know Luther Vandross. It was very rough, from my beginnings. So as I got older, I ran into, at that time we had cassette tapes. Yeah. I would record the radio station, the secular radio station. That's how I got to know Boyz II Men. I got into the R&B, stinkfully a little.
Yeah.
I learned about Dr. Dre the wrong way. Pretty bad, curses everywhere, and I had to stop it. That one was a CD that my friend gave me at school. I brought it home. So at that point we had a CD player. I played it, had a curse. I had to take it out and give it back to my friend. Like, I can't listen to it. My mom catches me. I'm done.
It's over for you.
Yep. So at least with Boyz II Men and people related to that, I was able to learn secular music, but it was mostly Christian music. And then as I got older, I would call myself a late bloomer.
Yeah.
In regards to music catalog, so I had a lot catching up to do. But thankfully, God's gift to me to really learn music as fast as possible, to blend in with the crew, whoever I'm working with. I'm able to just fit in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was legalistic all the way, and then Free as a Bird after that, and my music world just expanded.
Yeah.
Into more experiences and stuff like that.
This is like a whole podcast episode itself, but the whole legalism of music growing up was, once I got older, I always found it interesting because it's the only art form that's really treated that way. At least that was my experience, where like music was such a big deal where it was like you can't listen to secular music, blah blah blah. I don't really know how it is now. I think a lot of people have calmed down, especially like in Latino Pentecostal churches, or although there's still probably Rajatabla churches out there. But I know for me, I always found it interesting that it wasn't as spoken of when it came to like movies or TV shows. Definitely, if it was like crazy, they would have a problem with it. But it was almost like if you even listened to 10 seconds of a secular song,
You're done.
you were done. Like, that's it. And that was always so weird to me. But hey, that's neither here nor there. That's, like I said, that's a whole podcast episode by itself. But yeah, man, that's interesting. I asked that because I just wanted to know what like your musical influences are. I've always respected your approach to music. We've known each other for a long time now. And just one of the things I always noticed was that for you, music was something that needed to be taken seriously.
Correct.
Something that you're passionate about. It's the best way I could describe it actually is like almost the respect that you would have for your wife in a way. It's like, this is my partner. She needs to be respected. It was almost that same approach to music. I feel I kind of got the energy from you. So I've always really respected that from you and wanted to know like how it was. So it's interesting to hear that you were a late bloomer as far as the music catalog.
Still am.
Yeah.
I will play with bands today, and they will be like, "Oh, let's play Truco Tru," you know that's also oldie.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
I would be like, "Listen, I need the chart for that," and they all look at me like,
What?
"You don't know that by memory?" I'm like, "I don't know it. I know it, but I never played it." Like,
Right.
So things like that.
They were probably playing it at 12 years old.
Exactly. Their parents were playing it on Saturday mornings and stuff like that. And like Heto Lavo stuff, I need to hear it. I would treat it like if it's a song that came out in 2026.
Yeah.
So I would have to learn through it, go through it and learn it and then perform it with the guys.
Yeah.
So late bloomer for sure. I'm still am, but again, the gift that God has given me to really, what may take someone of years to learn, I could do that in a matter of the fraction of that.
Yeah.
With music. So I've always taken advantage of that. Even when I was a young kid, with my first opportunity to play with a professional band, I locked myself in a room, learned the charts, even if I didn't know how to read. I memorized it with the sounds, and then I would go into the rehearsal like if I was part of the band.
Wow.
And so I got into the bands like that.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. All right. So ready to do the listen?
Let's go.
And I already know which part I really want to well, let's just dive in. Yeah, let's do that. So, I know when you first presented to me, you shared with me just kind of like the journey that happens there. There's two parts that really stand out to me personally. Uh, One is like the guitar riff that comes out is like,
Right,
and
right.
it serves like as that transition into the different part of the song, and then also the other transition to like the third act, I think, where it's very like celestial and heaven like and God's glory. That transition as well. So for some reason, the two transitions really stand out to me. Um, the first one for me, because you have that first part that's very valley driven. It's like the low,
Right.
the dry place. It feels like the cave, the wasteland, the wilderness, the valley. And then all of us, I love how it's sudden. It's like, phew, and it's like, for me, it almost reminds me of like revving up an engine in a sense.
Correct.
So for me, I talk a lot about on the podcast and also with the content that I create about how God is always with us in the valley.
That's right.
But what tends to happen is it feels very solitary. It feels like we're alone, and we don't notice that He's there. So that moment for me is the realization that He's there.
That's right.
That moment is the, oh snap, you've always been here, and the transition into everything changing
Correct.
at the same time. It's like maybe your situation hasn't really changed, but you realized He's there with you. So now all of the sudden, your whole approach to the situation changes. And that also leads to the actual change of your situation in a sense as well. And then that third part, the other transition is just like the well done from Jesus. Like, you, good job, my well done, my good and faithful servant. You know, like God being glorified in our lives, and Him being lifted higher, right? Which a lot of times, I was talking to somebody recently, a really close person to me, and they were sharing with me how much they're struggling with their faith right now, because they feel like there's all these expectations that are placed on them, not just as a man. And as a man, you know, we have so many expectations placed on us that we have to deal with. But then on top of that, as a Christian man, right? Being a Christian man, he feels like he is seen in a certain way, and he doesn't check off all those boxes, and it's really getting to him. And I told him, I was like, listen, like, at the end of the day, that's not what God cares about right now. In fact, everybody else's expectation of you couldn't be any lower on God's list. Yes, He does have expectations that may align with some of the things that people are expecting. But at the end of the day, when you're hurting and you feel far from Him, He's not like, hey man, here's the list. You're not lining up with it. He's not, that's not what He's doing. And that's how it feels. It feel exactly. And what He really is looking at you is like, hey, I'm here with you. I love you. And all I want is for you and me to be in a relationship. So yeah, bro, I know I said a whole mouthful just now, but like, I'm really jazzed up by it.
I love it.
I'd love to hear from you, like, you know, just your perspective and your heart about it.
For what you said, describing the soundtrack is exactly what was the vision for creating the soundtrack. It was a collective motif of what I've seen, what you were talking about in your past conversations, because I've seen different episodes, and mostly about what you were saying on your side, because I was listening to your heart, I was listening to your thoughts, and I was inspired. If I could bless somebody, it's gonna be through music.
Yeah.
I'm not a speaker, brother. You know, I'm not Gigi Avila. You know
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
You know
yeah.
who Gigi Avila is?
Yeah.
I'm not him. I'm not, any of these preachers. I can preach through music.
Yeah.
I grew up in church, so playing in the altar calls, I always understood how important that was.
Wow, that's a really good connection there.
That skill had permitted me to work for film and TV, making music for, underscores,
Wow, that's amazing.
where you have conversations and the dialogue, and then you have the music in the background.
Right.
I mean, you do that now with your edits with licensed music,
Yeah.
but I actually do that directly with filmmakers, where
Yeah.
they'll send me the scenes and I would have to make the music. So I understand the importance of music. In the church, I learned that in church, not at school, not in a video tutorial. I learned that in school. I learned that with crazy preachers. I learned that with soft-spoken preachers. I learned that through shout music when I play at a black church.
Yeah.
I know that if I hit a certain thing, I'm gonna have people running everywhere.
Right. Right. Right.
If I don't hit that certain thing, I have control over the emotions of the people.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So music is a very powerful thing, and if I can bless somebody, it will be through music. And so when I put the description of you, because you are the host, this podcast is you, not me or any other guest. This is you. Hearing your story is what inspired that soundtrack, not anything else. So when I sat down to do this, the title and the logo, that's the reason why I told you send me that, because I need that, the V, the valley. And so we all go to darkness, and it doesn't stop. We can celebrate an achievement. Eventually, we're gonna go right back to that peak in our life. And so it was very important for me to start the soundtrack with the low valley, because many people, like, we see these great social media preachers, they're always on the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Right? They're always on that glorified, that French horn. Bum, 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 bum. They're always preaching that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But hardly, maybe one or two people preach about the valley, about the dark. And so that's how I started the soundtrack, leading into that guitar, meaning, although we make emotional decisions, but if you kind of connect with God, emotion is part of it, right? It's in us.
Yeah.
But not to let it drive us 100%, because we can make emotion. It's like people go to church on Easter, they all give themselves to Jesus, and then on Monday they're right back.
Yeah.
I'll see you next year, 2027 Easter. So it's an emotional feel for that transition to go into the brass, into the strings, into the rock drums, that lets us know God is with us. That doesn't mean that we're done and we're in the promised land and that's it, no more problems. And then it goes back into the synthesizers, where it's going to. That just means that we're kind of back low again, but then the strings come in with emotional phrasing, and that lets us know that yes, God is with us. And then it ends into that, and then it's a valley. That soundtrack will continue repeating itself, I believe.
Yeah.
Through experience, I've been through the lows. I've been through a lot of lows. I've been through a lot of highs, and it's a learning experience. And one thing I do want to give as the summary of the soundtrack is the heart, right? So the heart really defines who you are in those moments. It's not what you have materialistically. You could have all the money in the world. You could have, all the materialistic things, but that doesn't matter if your heart's in the wrong place. And, just connection with God is with Christ. Hearing the Holy Spirit, going through that valley. That's what that music represents. And that's how I can share a gift to you for the podcast. I'm like, this is what people might need to hear the soundtrack to understand that it, to me, it aligns well with what you talk about.
Yeah.
And even on your other videos that you do tips and essentials, I've seen those. That's what we need. You know what I mean? The truth. We need reality. We don't need, sugarcoating and all that stuff. So I hope that the people that listen to that, they can close their eyes and meditate from the beginning. We hear breaths in the beginning. That's us exhausted.
Yeah.
The breath that you hear in the soundtrack is taking those deep breaths. And but ultimately, God is with us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can't say that you could have captured it any better. Like, it really is a good capture of just everything that embodies what it is here. And like you said, it is a cycle. Like, in a fallen world, there's gonna be times where you fall down. And the good about it is that God doesn't waste any of that. He's not like, all right, see you later. I know we're gonna have to take a break now because you're going through a pretty tough situation. So when you're over it, I'll be back. All right. No, he's there with you through the whole thing. And then he's like, okay, now that we're a little bit better, what if we took this and turned it into art?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Everything has a purpose.
Like, isn't it crazy that God is literally the craziest artist
Yeah.
ever?
Yeah.
He makes canvases out of our pain, bro.
Correct. Yeah. It's a lot of canvases, bro.
It's a lot of canvases.
A museum, brother.
But that's the beauty of it, because then you can go and you can look back at that time in your life, and it's always in hindsight, because when you're going through it, you're like, yo, this sucks. This is tough. Like, you're navigating all of the different emotions that you're experiencing. You're navigating probably not wanting to pray, not wanting to even like think about God, right? But then in hindsight, you look back and you're like, wow, look at everything I got out of this. Look at who I am today. Look at how God glorified himself. Granted, that is if we allow him back in, right? But once we do, we can see just how much he can glorify himself through any situation, bro. When did you get saved?
I was born in church.
Yeah, you were born in church. So you've been hearing stories your whole life.
Been through it all.
You know how many stories we've heard of people?
Tuesday nights, testimony nights,
bro. And those testimonies go on for like 45 minutes to an hour. But people going through the craziest situations, marriages completely restored after the craziest situations, people literally being healed from the craziest diseases, people being raised from the dead, which people, is 2026 and this stuff still happens and people don't believe it. One of my favorite ones, like, yo, Rajatabla churches were tough, but we used to see the crazy stuff like people's legs being readjusted to be the same length and like stuff like that, bro. Where I wish we could find a balance between the legalism and the freedom, right? Because there has to be a balance. You can't go too far free. You can't go too far legalistic.
Right.
But there is something to be said for the fact that because legalism goes so far, they end up kind of being very consecrated, not because of their legalism, but because they go beyond the consecration. And because of that consecration, that like separateness, God does still glorify himself more so than he does when you go too far on the freedom side. That's a whole thing to unpack there, which we don't have time, but you get my drift, right? And then, so what happens is you do see miracles. You see God glorifying himself, which for some people that validates the legalism, which it really doesn't, but God still glorifies himself because people have separated themselves from him. And you see some miraculous things, bro. And it's like beautiful to see the tapestry of art that God can create from a life that, yes, is broken in many ways, but he gathers all the pieces and he creates something beautiful from it.
Amen. That's right.
So,
and the demon possessions too. Like, you know, the rule was keep your eyes closed.
Right.
You know, if you have your eyes open, you're done.
Yeah. No, and those were crazy situations too, bro. Like, nobody could tell me God doesn't exist. Like, listen, there might be this one person listening who's like an atheist or something, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, sorry, bro. Like, there's nothing you can say to me, Tom from West Virginia. Imagine there's a Tom from West Virginia that's listening. We love you, Tom. I'm just making up something.
Just be careful, because God can hit you up with a blindness, and then you're gonna be asking God to heal your blindness.
Exactly, and it's like there's no way you could tell me that God doesn't exist, because there's just too much that I've seen. There's too much that I've experienced, that I've seen God do, and I've seen God take people out of valleys so many times, and he continues to glorify himself through people, bro. That's why when somebody's going through a really tough situation, you could say, hey, bro, you're just at the beginning of the song.
That's it. That's it, baby.
Get to the end of the song.
That song was done a short period because the soundtrack, a theme soundtrack, has to be a certain amount of minutes, and also the attention span of people. I don't, including myself. So you gotta grab it. You gotta grab their attention and
Right.
right away, and let them stick with it. So, but yeah, it's a journey, man, and I would never say, God took me out, and I never. We deal with it. We deal with our weaknesses. We deal with our shortcomings. And one of the things that I'm proud of in my life is I'm a David in a way where I trust God only, bro.
Yeah.
I know that iron sharpens iron. I understand that, and I believe that there's a time for that. But it's not the only thing. I'm not gonna call you every 5 minutes,
Oh, you can't do that.
bro. I need your help, yo. There's situations for that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it is, the word does say that, but I'm not the only one that has a life like David, where you're just sitting down writing music, and that's your only way to pray to God.
Yeah.
And your prayer is private, like super private. I share with you what I share with you, but I'm giving you a summary of that, and that's the valleys. I have problems. I have many problems. I have a problem as an individual, as an entrepreneur, responsibilities as a husband, house. You're the pastor of your house. That's your first ministry.
Yeah.
Your kids, providing for them, all that stuff, all combines together. For us, it's harder compared to a person that works a 9 to 5. So the valleys are a little bit darker for us.
Yeah.
And so, I'm a David. I pray to God. And for years, I made a promise to God many years ago for a musical project. Someone paid for me to go to Miami, paid a manager to represent me as a writer. And I was so dwelled in that opportunity that I put that opportunity first.
Mm-hmm.
I came back home, and I was always calling the manager, like, hey, what's going on? Oh, nothing yet. Next month, yo, what's going on? Nothing yet. I got fed up with that. And so I made a promise to God. I think it was 2007. I will never, ever dwell on an opportunity ever again. If I get an opportunity, amen, I will give him 100%. But I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to move on. And that's why when you heard the soundtrack, I was like, whoa, that was nice, because I trained myself to leave it in God's hands and move. Forget about it and move on.
Yeah.
If I get the opportunity 6 years later, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, you're that kid that came 6 years ago. I've had opportunities that I forgot about, and later on, maybe in the future, I might have networked with someone I want to work with. They ignored me, and then something happened where I know a person that knows the other person, and now we're all connected.
Yeah.
So, those are perfect examples of me making that promise effective and pushing through that. And I still live by that, and I'm a Psalms guy. So I read the Psalms. I don't read it to memorize verses or to memorize chapters or to come and say, hey, Psalms this, verse 5. I read it because I need the comfort, so I can relate to David. David was an entrepreneur, right? You can say that. He was alone most of the time.
David is my guy, bro. So
So,
my favorite Bible character.
I had to sit
aside
down
from Jesus, of course.
I had to sit down and read Psalms because I have valleys. So when I read Psalms 91, for example, Psalms 134, which is a funny story. I work at a church. Nobody knows my thoughts. Nobody knows my problems. I work for a church. You see me, I look professional, bro. You're not going to see any, oh, God bless you. I'm kind. I'm loving. I'm professional. I come out after the service. I'm running to get out, to go home. This old lady runs after me, and she speaks to me. What she said to me is, in summary, don't give up. Continue doing what you're doing. So my daughter was recently diagnosed with autism. That's why I wear this bracelet. She's high functioning, so she has autism. So my wife is a warrior. She's been fighting for my daughter since she was 2. She knew that she has some type of autism, but the doctors weren't, girls mask
Yeah.
autism really good. So it's to now that, we finally took her to a second facility, and now she's getting all the help she can get. So we're good with that, but, things like that. My wife and I were going through that, dealing with our daughter, setting her up for success with the other two kids that we have. Also, all of that stuff comes to play. As a man, I'm holding all of that, but I'm praying through it.
Yeah.
I have a wife to feel. She needs to feel like she has a man in the house,
Right. You have to
a
be the rock.
faithful man. I can't be weak.
Yeah.
I'm weak with God, brother.
Yeah.
I have my studio in my house. That's my prayer room. I have a Bible there with all my other books, Psalms. Keep me under your wings. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Be gracious to me, O God. Be gracious to me, O God. Be gracious to me and my family. So I can relate to David. David didn't go and tell his problems, or I believe that there's a spot for that, and I highly respect that, because I've had conversations with pastors and all that stuff. I share, you know, but my God, Jesus knows my tears. He sees my tears. If the situation allows for me to be intimate with another brother in a conversation, then that's gonna happen, of course. But my first approach is, I need to get on my knees and pray to God.
Yeah.
And I've seen His work. I've seen His miracles in my life personally. Where this, as an entrepreneur, what do we worry most about as an
The
entrepreneur?
next paycheck.
Next paycheck.
The
So-
feast or famine mentality.
My faith is plan A, plan B, and plan C.
Yeah.
So God has opened doors in weird moments.
Most definitely.
And so, it's like we may receive a lot of achievements, but those achievements don't give you the big paycheck that you're expecting, So it's like, those are the things that we worry about. And when I know, as an adult, I could see myself, how imperfect I am. And through music, even when I'm working with a client that has nothing to do with Christ, I'm writing as if I'm writing for Christ.
Yeah.
If I'm writing my prayers in music,
Because you are.
I could write a dark song for like that has nothing to do with fighting or something that's negative. I'm writing it as I'm writing for God.
Mm-hmm.
So in the soundtrack, really, all of that stuff that I just said right now is on that soundtrack.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it sounds a bit crazy. It sounds like, my God, what? It's a sad situation. It's not a sad situation. God glorifies Himself through my pain. God glorifies Himself through my limitations. I fall short every day. But prayer and communication with God and action, of course, so we got to practice that. It's not only that. It's not only locking yourself in the dark and praying. You have to practice it. And that's where, when I told you before, our kids see all of this. So we got to be the perfect example. They see me working, they see me doing the family stuff, and I teach my kids that, like, when you grow up, you're gonna have, everybody's journey is different. You get me? Like my daughters, what they want to be. One wants to work as a doctor. That's a different journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different situation. I'm a different situation. My parents got split when I was 15. I had freedom to do whatever I wanted. I made a lot of bad decisions.
Yeah.
But music was the thing that kept me intact. And if that was God's way of keeping me safe, amen.
Yeah, man.
I hung out with bad
That's
people.
good.
I tried to be bad, bro. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The worst things that I've done was, when I was younger, is jump the path train.
Yeah.
You feel me? I got caught 2 or 3 times, and that was pretty much the most criminal thing I've ever done. Is that. But God always kept me in the music ministries. I've been with Christian artists. I've been with pastors. I've slept in pastors' houses. I've been in behind the curtains of everything. I've seen bad stuff.
Yeah.
To the point where I have the validation to say, I don't want to do music with Christians, bro. They're the worst. You know what I mean? They're the worst. But I also understand that we're all in the same boat.
Yep.
Nobody's perfect, brother.
Yep.
You know, it
And
took
when
me
we
years.
stop acting like it, that's when we
It
can
took
start
me
healing.
years. Exactly, because you're trying to act like you are. You're holding all of that inside. When you let it go, you just become a demon, bro. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, you know. But it took me many years as a man to understand, you know, being behind the curtains, being in studios where we're making music and being in conversations where ministers are talking about other ministers. And it's just like, oh, are you with me or you against me? Hey, you're playing with that band. You're not playing with my band. It's just crazy. But I've learned, and me, myself, I've done things to offend other people as well.
Right.
And
again, because you're not perfect.
And now they don't ever look for me again.
Yeah.
But then I learned that they're not bad people. I'm sure that they've prayed. I'm sure that they have forgiven me. They don't want to give me access. That's fine. Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't give access to many people. I've forgiven people, but I move on with my life.
Yeah.
You know, so those are the tiny little things that
there's a lot of good stuff that you said. I'm trying to think which way I want to go. I should have interjected earlier, but you were doing like you, I was really enjoying. No, I hear you, but I was really enjoying what you were saying. So one thing that I wanted to talk about real quick was just the idea that being able to go directly to God and in appropriate times go to your friends, those people, like going to God in your Psalms and then going to your Jonathan when you need your Jonathan, as David, right? That's the sign of a healthy person. And I think that naturally we all have our predisposition. The third one would be like isolation, which I think is a lot of people's predisposition. They're just like for me, my problem was always isolation. Why? Because a lot of people just let me down. I mean, my first experience, all love to my parents, and they did their best 100%. But first thing that I experienced in my life, a divorce. My parents divorced when I was 1. So I'm growing up, and already the two people that I'm meant to depend on don't have a relationship anymore. And as a child, that hits you hard, right? So then you're growing up, and I think I had a little bit more than people's fair share of letdowns from like adults and friends. That was just the life that I ended up having. Again, I don't fault or blame any of those people. A lot of them were trying their best. Like you said, I hurt people very deeply. I'm sure there are people out there that think, maybe that even think that I'm a fraud, right? Like they see the podcast and they're just like, oh, this guy is a fake, blah, blah, because of mistakes that I made towards them that maybe they don't know I deeply regret, right? Or that I was having a very difficult period of my life, right? That, again, does not excuse me from the mistakes that I made or that you made or that they made or whatever the case may be. But again, we're just a whole bunch of jackwagons, but a bunch of messed up people just trying our best.
Let me tell you a quick story. I was at a gathering a few weeks ago, and God, you know, my relationship with Christ is I love God. I'm not a preacher. Again, I'm a musician, so give me the ARP. But I love Christ, and you can see that through some titles. I have Jesus Returns. I have God's Soundtrack Suite Volume 1. Everything's dedicated to Christ. It's all epic music, emotional stuff, and emotive music. But aside from that, a church where we used to go to, God has revealed through people, from people that don't know us, maybe high and buys, from behind the scenes stuff that was happening against us, words against me.
Yeah.
Because what my whole thing is, I'm a musician that could be taken advantage of. I go to a church, this guy plays. Come and play. I didn't want to play in this particular church. I just wanted to sit down with my family. All right?
It's rough, man. Whenever that happens.
Conversations were happening.
Way too much.
Conversations were happening. I wasn't there. So we don't know anybody that can be our friend and be like, yo, they were talking about you.
Yeah.
So through a casual conversation, this lady had told my wife, this guy said this. I'm like, that's crazy. Strike one. And then other things started happening, strike two and three. And I took me and my family out of this current church. I believe that God spoke to us and gave us the revelation of people. And I made the decision to leave. And my wife also felt the same way. So we left in a formal manner. And I wrote we wrote an email to this individual, and obviously the individual denied that was said. But how did the other person know this information? So respectfully, we just left and never went back. Another situations where we had a conversation with another fellow musician, and I was thinking of connecting with him until he said 2 or 3 words. Oh, because this guy, the one that you had a problem with. And that's where I put the brakes. I let him finish, and I went along with the conversation. But after that, I'm not gonna connect with that person.
Yeah, you just
because I was honest,
quietly remove yourself,
I
which
was
is a skill that we need to
sincerely,
cultivate.
God knows that I was gonna connect with this guy in front of Jesus Christ. I was gonna connect with this guy, and I was gonna give him access.
Yeah.
And then he said that, and my heart just closed. You know why? Because I worked very hard to move on from many things in my life. I have a family now, so I don't want to be in a circle where there's some stuff that happened more than 10 years ago. How you gonna say that? How you gonna, like? So then, who told you that?
Yeah.
And so the conversations, I'm like, I want to know. I don't want to know, actually.
Yeah.
I just
because then that reopens.
I closed
everything.
my heart to that connection, and so that's to me the fruits of really depending on God 100%. So nobody knows my business. Only God knows my business. And again, when the time is right to get in-person help, that's appropriate. Amen to that. But I believe that God protects me and my family in ways that we wouldn't expect. And the blessings and the miracles that we've received all come from God.
Yeah.
The times where we thought that it's gonna be a no, we know that we placed it in God's hands, and some things became a yes, some things turned out to be a no. I've also experienced in my life, which I still do, a quick thing that you don't know about me that I would tell you. I'm one person away. I was always one person away from working with Marc Anthony. God put a Chinese wall. So.
And by the way you said that is distinct. So it was one person away, and it wasn't just one person. You mean like there were always one person's, like there were multiple ways it could have happened, but it was always one person away? Is that what you mean?
There were a couple of ways, but I always knew the person.
Oh, okay, got it.
That. And to tell you more, this person has always told the other musicians, look at Marc Anthony's next piano player there. That was a big thing in my life because I grew up being mentored by people close to Marc. And so it was a big hurt, but I got through it through prayer and through analyzing, not through conversation with people, through my isolation. Being mature enough to know that I'm praying to God, but I also got to work on moving on, forgiving the person, and moving on. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And so growing up in church, I always understood that. Like, bro, I could come and speak to a counselor, but you're going to go back to it again when you leave.
Right.
So my whole thing is putting pressure on myself. Trust God, bro. And so I was always one person away from that situation. But God had, I don't know, the Chinese wall, brother, I couldn't get over it. To the point where that one person became an enemy. So I see all these pieces right before me, Eric. Like I'm seeing it like if God is showing me. I'm like, nope, you don't belong there. As a matter of fact, you were probably connected with this guy for a short period of time, but now no more. It was like if God removed like a limit,
Yeah.
or something. That when God took it, that person became a bulldog after me.
Wow.
And so it was crazy because I could see it. And so I made a decision. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm moving on with what I'm currently doing. I'm independent. I was always a contractor with people I work with.
Yeah.
Um, I work with music on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
Telemundo, Discovery Plus, and Emmy nominated shows from Netflix that they received a nomination. So God has blessed me in many ways.
Yeah.
Where if I dwell so much on that particular thing, I
You
felt like
forget about the others.
I wouldn't ever give myself that opportunity to
Yeah.
branch out. And these decisions didn't happen early before 2020. This decision happened about 2019, 2020, where everything was just crumbling down. Because my goal was to work in the Latin industry.
Yeah.
Okay, my desire was to be the Christian version of this
Yeah.
in salsa music, right? That didn't pan out. And while it wasn't panning out, it wasn't a mystery because God was throwing all these evidences at me. Look, that guy that you thought so much about, your idol, your mentor, look how he's treating you now. Look at this, look at that. Boom. I told my friends, listen guys, I'm taking a break from salsa music. I'm not producing salsa music for a long time. I need to focus on other things. Because I got lost after a while. I was in a place where I didn't know where to go in music.
Yeah.
I had God in my life, but I needed to find out what's the purpose, bro? Like, what's my
Yeah.
purpose? And
That's
you're
good.
always scared because as a Christian, it's like you see people becoming pastors back to back. Frustrated artists become pastors. I don't know if you've seen that. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Frustrated artists become pastors. So they open up a storefront church and they start pastoring. And I'm always scared of
Not
that.
only frustrated artists, but failed businessmen
They become pastors, right?
become pastors.
I was always scared of that.
You
So
didn't want that to be you.
I don't want that to be me. I'm like, what's my purpose? Because I've seen musicians become pastors. And I'm like, no, this is not me, bro. My kids know that I'm not good enough to be a pastor. They see an imperfect dad. I'm like, I'm trying to raise my kids. Like, so that's always been a fear of me. Like, if this is not working out for me, if this is something that I've practiced so much to be, I've trained to be this. And so I've navigated through my life. COVID came and I expanded my talents more. I was always working in third-party studios, but now I built a production studio in my house where I do everything.
Right.
So I have my composition set up, I have my mixing set up, so I could go downstairs to my basement where I have my studio. I have clients coming in. I do remote sessions, and so now I'm expanding where I'm taking that freedom. I'm monetizing everything. Everything's being monetized. Everything that I do is monetized. I've gotten good amount of checks from my publisher, ASCAP. I've seen things I've never done. I've gotten things I've never done before. If I didn't make that decision to walk away,
Move on. Yeah.
Netflix would never happen. You would never hear my music on Netflix. I would never get a notification that, hey, Telemundo is playing this, this and that is happening. For the first time in my life, I did something with a salsa artist that got considered for the Grammys and the Latin Grammys. They didn't get nominated, but it got considered.
Yeah.
Which is a big step.
It's still a big deal, bro.
So these little
things.
We're
talking about the Grammys here. Like, that's a big deal.
So these little things that I've never experienced in my life, I'm experiencing now. And now with this new format that's out, Dolby Atmos, which the soundtrack is going to be in Dolby Atmos and immersive audio as well. Not only in stereo, but also in surround sound.
Yeah.
So I got into that, and I've worked over 100 Atmos productions where You know, you see my playlist, you see my credits. My credits have, you know, it's been compared to where I was a few years ago. Today, I'm a different person. And for me to be a different person, I had to walk away from a lot of people, a lot of things. I
Yeah.
had to unfollow a lot of people and get away from a lot of those things. So I get calls to go back. Like, you know how you leave something that come back, come back.
Yeah.
I get calls a lot for that. No, no.
Yeah.
One of the things I've done recently was say no, a lot of no's. A lot of no's. I've salsa bands calling me. No. The reason why logistics doesn't match.
Yeah.
We're in 2026. Gas is up. Tolls are up. They're still paying the musicians the same. That's garbage.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no. No, 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 no. And so it's a few dollars off that I lose from these opportunities. But I'd rather respect myself more than being stuck in that circle and not improving in life. So in order for me to improve myself is to kind of try to be as smart as I can and walk away from what's not working for me anymore, but still reaching the same goal. So music is my life, you know, and I've had the opportunity to go through a lot of things, but now where I stand, I'm more mature. I'm also producing, you know, young artists. And my daughter, for example, God blessed me with a beautiful little girl that can sing her heart out. And she's going to release her first single on, you know, her first cover on May 29th. Yeah, 29th. And so it's a blessing when you know, we were on a cruise and talent night they had talent night every night. And my daughter, she sang Christina Aguilera's My Reflection song.
Christina Aguilera is not an easy
No,
artist.
yeah. And she sang the Pocahontas Colors of the Wind in this karaoke thing. And everybody went crazy. Oh, wow. Is she coming back tomorrow night? She came back tomorrow
That's
night.
Awesome.
We did another. She did the same songs again, and she did maybe 3 nights because, you know, we weren't always there. So when, you know, that's a blessing in my life. So now I'm incorporating all of my talent. Obviously, she has access to the studio. Obviously, you know, if your kid decides to do this, they don't have to pay
for all the cameras. Yeah, exactly.
So my daughter doesn't have to pay for production.
My daughter vlogs now in the house. We don't put the videos out, but she'll vlog on the little camera, walking around, talking about her day, talking about the toys. It's hilarious.
So now I feel successful because I can give my daughter something that a lot of people would have to pay a musician to do for their kid.
Right.
I feel extremely successful.
Yeah.
I feel happy because I could give my daughter those resources and invest in her talent. And she's a baby still. She's 10. So that means that as she gets older, she's going to learn all these skills, bro. And I teach her. I'm like, listen, you know, when you get older and you work with other producers, you're a woman. You got to make sure that you're firm and you know what you want and you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So as she was recording this cover, I was showing her what I was doing. This is what we're doing. We're going to punch in. We're going to fix that. This is how we do it. Look. Okay? And so I'm teaching her that, and to me, I feel accomplished. So many might not feel that. It might not.
Nah, man, that's rich as that.
Yeah, like
it's completely different type of rich. Like,
yeah, exactly. So when she gets older, she's gonna be a monster. And especially my other kids. My oldest one is into art, and she has all these fancy markers that we invest in for her. So she has access to that when she grows up. If that's what she wants to do, she's gonna have it. Compared to me when I was a kid, brother, I wanted to play drums. My dad brought me timbales, bro. You know the whole drum set thing.
Yeah.
But my dad brought me timbales in an apartment in Union City, where we were living on the, I think it was the 4th floor, where you can hear, if you hit that timbal, bang. You know what a timbal is, right?
Yeah.
With the cowbell.
Yeah.
Neighbors, it's like
they lost their mind.
So I would have to cover the timbales with the cover so that I could mute the sound. But I used to practice on the couch. So, you know, the snare drum would be a piece of paper I would lay on the couch. another high frequency thing on the arm. So I would do this. The bass drum would be on the floor. The toms would be the pillows, and that's how I would practice drums. So to be able to give my kids
That's crazy.
industry standard tools to do their thing, it's amazing. Those are one of the things that I look at as, wow, okay, thank you. This I'm passing it on to them, and I'm teaching them so that that's the future right there. Our kids are the future.
Yeah.
Most of the time, our kids become better than us.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna remember that, hey, Dad gave me everything that he had. He never told me no. My other child is learning cello in school, and I sit down with her and I teach her like if I'm teaching my piano students.
Yeah.
Like, nope, repeat that again. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. Because in school they do everything in group, so you don't really get that individual attention.
Yeah.
So I gave her that discipline at home, and that's just, to me, that's success.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a different form of rich. Hey, what's going on, guys? I just wanted to interrupt you very quick for a moment just to talk to you about Patreon. Now, Patreon is simply a place where we can post additional content, behind the scenes stuff, extra stuff, ideas that you guys might be coming up with. And really what it comes down to is it's another way for you to support us financially. Now, Valley of the Heroic is run as a digital ministry, and many of you are so part of what we are doing here by supporting, by watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. If you didn't hit that subscribe button, you better do so right now. But some of you might be looking for a way to get more involved, and that would be the logical next step. Supporting through Patreon or through any other way will help us to continue to put this content together for you. And hopefully in the future for us to continue to grow and expand our efforts to reach more people in more beautiful ways and continue to help Valley of the Heroic to grow. So before I continue to ramble, I just wanted to tell you guys that and invite you to take a look at the Patreon page. If you have any questions, shoot me a message somewhere, either through Instagram or leave a comment down below. And if you feel led by the Holy Spirit to do so, become a member. God bless you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace. I really resonated with what you were talking about earlier too. Just if you weren't able to move on, then you wouldn't, not only would you have not been able to encounter those opportunities that you did, which are tremendous, but also you probably, even if you did experience them, you wouldn't be able to be grateful for them because you'd still be stuck on the initial one. Yeah. And it's crazy because eventually, people probably still kind of clamor, will continue to clamor for you to come back, right? They'll be like, oh, come back, like you're saying. Eventually, you become so known for the new thing you're doing.
With the new people.
And they don't even know about all of the history and time and effort that went into what preceded what you do now and what you're known for. And that's exactly what I went through. I don't know if you remember, bro, when I was younger, but you tell me. But there was one specific thing that I was known for growing up and one specific role that everybody was like, this is what Eric's going to be. And it was to be a pastor. That's all it was. Eric's going to be a pastor. I was going to open a church in Elizabeth. And I get it. I started, if you think about it, and for a while, it didn't even make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me because everything did point to it. 12-year-old kid leading a small group. 15 years old preaching in the pulpit. 17, 18 years old, small group is at 50 youth sitting in his mom's living room. Got people sitting on the stairs, people sitting on the floor, people sitting on the couches, people standing up for a small group. Obviously God is doing something, right? So I get it. Entering into ministry, I became basically Lipe's right-hand man, was preaching very consistently, went to college, did Bible for my undergrad, was set to do. I started my master's in divinity. I didn't finish it, but I started my master's in divinity. Everything comes crashing down in 2016. Completely. Small group dissipates in a span of a few months. I get married, end up depressed. Because I was, wow, I'm getting emotional. I haven't gotten emotional about this in a while, but bro, I was doing this since I was 12. Yeah. I took a break one time when I was like 14. And you remember Tony and Ish?
Tony, yeah.
Yeah, Tony Oyoa?
Yeah.
Him and Ish, they came for a year, and they just poured into us for a year to take over because I was not okay emotionally. Like, I think it was too much. I was leading a small group, and everybody was my age, and we were all going through the same stuff. And I didn't have the resources. Nobody was like mentoring me strictly every single week, like really teaching me how to flesh out my faith. I was just trying to figure it out on my own. Now, there were people in the church that definitely helped me. I'm not saying nobody helped me, but they had their own lives. They had their own things to do. You know what I'm saying? So they came for a year. Tremendous came, served us for a year. And then when I was ready again, took over. But since I was 12, aside from that, since I was 12 to 27 years old, I was leading this small group. It was already a church plant. It just wasn't official. And then for it to fall apart, I lost one of my biggest treasures, one of the biggest treasures in my life that in some ways probably I put higher than God, died. And then that loss resulted in an identity crisis. Because now when I was 18 years old and going into college, somebody convinced me to go in for business, which is funny because I ended up being an entrepreneur. But when I started business, I was like, bro, this is not for me. Like, I had to create a business plan. I was in like math courses, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to be a businessman. I don't know why. I let somebody convince me because they said you can't make a living off of being a pastor. You need to get a real degree. I knew that I was like, I'm doing ministry. So I did one semester on business degree, and I switched back to Bible. I was like, nah, this isn't for me. Which, again, is really funny because I ended up as an entrepreneur. So I go, and I'm doing that. And, bro, I was 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. And you know what I used to say? I used to say, if I'm not a pastor, I don't know what I'll be. I don't have any other choices. I didn't have cameras back then. Did you see me with a camera when I was younger? I didn't pick up a camera until 2021. And now everybody knows me as the cinematic video guy, right? This is what people know me for. One of the biggest churches I have as a client, I was talking to their creative director, and while talking to the director, she says to me, I realized that I haven't really gotten to know you. Can you tell me a little bit more about you? Like, you know, whatever. And I said, well, one of the things you don't know is that I actually have only been doing this for, at the time, it was like 3.5 years. And she lost her mind. Because to them, the quality of the work is, they're so happy with it, right? And to hear that I've only been doing it for 3.5 years. Now, I've been a creative my whole life, but I used to call myself, to share this with you, I don't share this with a lot of people. Maybe I've said it on the podcast once or twice, but I used to call myself the creative without an outward expression. So you give me a guitar, bro, it's going to sound like garbage. You give me any musical instrument, it's going to sound like ducks screaming. Like, it's terrible. I can't sing. I can't draw. I can't paint. I can't, like the usual stuff, all of it. It didn't come to me naturally, which I always was confused about because I knew God created me to be creative. So my creativity came out in ministry when I started to speak. And then my creativity came out in leadership. I started, leading in creative ways that came naturally to me, leading teams, making creative processes, creative systems that worked. And that was the only way it came out. But I always would be frustrated because I didn't have something that I could point to, like this painting right here. I couldn't point to it and be like, yeah, I'm a creative. I made this, right? Until I picked up a camera in 2021. And it just came to me like that. Like it just, pictures and videos, photo and video, it just came natural. So I just didn't get a camera earlier. And so I say all that to say that it's funny that I'm known for this now with Valley of the Heroic. Many of the people even watching probably know me for this. Many of them don't even know that I spent almost 20 years preaching.
Right. Yeah. I remember seeing you with the hat fitted, maybe.
Yeah.
With the other guys. Philip.
Mm-hmm.
Philip.
Yeah.
Right? Fridays Bible study.
Yep.
I see you walking in with your mom and Elizabeth, and I've always seen you on the front of the crew.
Yeah.
Like gang members, But I like that because I know that about you, So from here to there, seeing what you're doing right now, it's better than being a pastor, bro.
Yeah.
I think God gave
and
you.
I had to let it go, bro.
Yeah.
I had to because I was very confused. To your point, like there might be something that, and that doesn't mean that God might not bring it back in some way. Because like in many ways, I'm still doing ministry through the podcast. I still speak here and there if somebody invites me. That's something that I'm trying. Like eventually, I want to develop, right? But that's like a whole thing to undertake itself. But to your point, like you have to let it go. You can't hold on to it. Because if you hold on to it, you're never going to be able to move on to what God is trying to do now. And for a while, I was just so confused. I was just like, this is what my whole life was leading up to, God. Why did it not happen? Why didn't it happen? What did I do? What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? And then we start doing all of this like shame stuff that becomes super unhealthy when really God wants us to just, okay, God, it wasn't for now. I trust you. Let's keep it moving.
And that's a battle that we all have with self-doubt and blaming ourselves and seeing our mistakes in front of us. It's hard to move on sometimes, and that's where we have to do it through prayer and action. That's where I think the real relationship happens with God, when you truly depend on him, your heart, because he'll take you to that. And with what your story about the pastor and now you're doing this, and you never know, you could go back to that. It could happen, bro. And then when it happens, it's gonna be like a tsunami. So I believe that God does whatever he wants. That's the whole point. So if we could predict that God says, oh, he didn't want me to do this, so I went this route, and I got new opportunities, like I said earlier, but who knows that later in the future I go back to that thing that maybe God thought I wasn't ready for that. I'm being honest. Maybe I'm not ready for what I initially wanted to do. And then maybe in the future, I could be 50 years old, 55 or whatever. God just, a tsunami. The same thing with you, maybe take you back to that place. And maybe this is a preparation phase where the community is being built and you don't even know it. And then all of a sudden, poof, you have to get a building for some.
Yeah.
And
you just never know.
I believe
you just
God
have
works
to be
that way.
both open, but also willing to move on.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's the key. You have to be open to whatever, like you can't, because another thing was that eventually I started to move on, but then I was bitter about it. And that's part of the healing process.
That's
like
part
you're,
of,
like you're angry. Yeah. You're like, I spent so much time. And the truth of the matter is that all of those things that I did, they didn't go to waste. God still used them. He's still using them today, whether it's because I'm doing a Bible study online or this conversation that we're having in a podcast. All those years of ministry influence everything I do. I work with churches now, churches and nonprofits in my business. All those years of ministry are super valuable to me because now I can make a video for a church that serves them well because I understand what their internal ministry system looks like. You know what I'm saying? So, and even when God started to steer my business this way, it was like it was too good to be true. At first I was like, nah, I don't think that's going to happen. And then it did. So we have to be both willing to move on and open to what God is going to do with all of those years, all of that experience, all of the things that you genuinely did want, and then maybe be open even to the fact that he might bring it back in some way, shape, or form.
And that's one of the things that I made a decision as an individual is, you know, how what can I do right now with what I have in front of me? You know, what are the opportunities that I can seek, and try things differently, and reaching the same goal. God gave you the passion for what you have a passion for. God has given me a love and passion for the thing that I love. But how can we glorify God? Like, what's the point? What are you doing? And so, with that gift, and again, people have it different ways. You know what I mean? So my thing is music, and however I can navigate to that musical journey, as in business, and also as a person that loves God. Like, how are we glorifying God with what we're doing? It's just doing the best that you can do for the person you're working with, or whatever personal projects you have going on. Just give it your all. You know, it doesn't always have to be a worship service.
Yeah.
I could work with the most a person that doesn't believe in God. If I'm getting hired to work with that person is gonna get an anointed
Yeah.
soundtrack, and that person doesn't even know it. You know,
Yeah.
so
That's real.
it's all how you dedicate the project. Whenever I submit something, I always say, "In your hands, I put this in your hands, God," because I really want to be successful. I can't be successful on my own with my own ability. I can never be successful, bro. I can never be successful, bro. I don't think, it's only through God that I can be successful. If something comes out of it, amen. When I'm submitting, and I submit to big people, you know, amen. If it goes through, great. If it doesn't, I move on. And that's where I trained my mind. That time in 2007, I'm not going to dwell on this. I'll put it in your hands. If it's of your will, I'm going to celebrate it, and I'm going to move on, And so, but I'm always open to anything, because as an adult, we learn when we connect with God that anything is possible, and anything could go, anything could shift this way or that way. That's why the valleys are always going to be there, because there's going to be a moment where we plan to do something, and we fall down, and we got to, like, okay, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So the valleys are as important as the triumph, as the end of that soundtrack. It's where the valley is where we really got to make those decisions. If we're going to stay there and dwell because we're not getting our way, or move forward even when you don't feel like moving forward, like, we got to move forward. There's moments where we scream.
Yeah.
As an adult, we're like sitting there. I'm like, God, this is not a prayer about exalting your name. This is going to be a prayer about I need to let my tears out. I got to cry. Please. But I'm doing it with God. I'm not going to somebody else. I'm doing it with God because I know how powerful God is.
Yeah.
I really know how powerful God is. God is my A, B, and C. Like, there's no other way I can succeed in this life. People have degrees. People have all this financial stability, which, obviously finance, money is what moves things. But what if the person has that and then they don't have it?
Yeah.
What's gonna happen? Look at all the suicides that have happened with people losing things, bankruptcies, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I see those things. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be successful in parts of my life. I'm gonna have lessons learned in part of my life. I'm gonna have great parts of my life. I'm gonna have learning moments. All that stuff is all part of life. But I wanted to have a common core there. And what is it? The common core is keeping a relationship with Christ.
Amen.
And that's all. That's all you
Amen.
need, And then your hard work.
Yeah.
Right? You study, you learn, you network, introduce yourself, be the best you can, have integrity, be respectful, be kind, be gracious. If you're praying for God to be gracious to you, Be gracious to people. Be kind to people. Of course, we know, me and you know, that there's also a fine line with access. So there's people that are in particular categories in our lives. That's one of the things that we have to learn, because someone could be um, want access to you, but they're gonna damage you somehow.
Yeah.
They're just gonna bring you down. With hate and all that stuff, secret hate, all that stuff. But God will show you those people.
Yeah.
God have shown me those people, and I have access. I have what you call it, limited access. People have that, and you know what? That doesn't mean that I'm better than you,
No.
because I understand that people do that with me too. People do that with you too.
Mm.
You don't believe that? You gotta
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
There's back and forth. We're too busy, sometimes we're too busy saying, oh, because this person, he did this and he thinks, oh, blah blah blah, and I don't want to work with that person. That person doesn't want to work with you either.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
We see all these motivational speakers talk about that other person is not ready to receive you as a friend because blah blah blah. But what about what we do?
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
true.
perfect, brother. I'm not perfect. I'm mature enough to know that I can have a conversation with somebody and they can say something offensive to me. They didn't mean it. I'm not going to take it to heart, but I'm going to use that as discernment, though.
Yeah.
They're speaking their heart, but I know that they don't mean it. But, it's like that conversation that I had with the other guy that I was about to give my heart to,
Yeah.
and access. When they said that thing, barrier closed, because I don't want that. So it's all Christ, bro. I think when we have that core thing, I think that everything around might, whatever happens, the Word of God says, whatever happens here or there, none of those things would touch you. I'm just putting it in in English, because I'm not a speaker myself. But I believe in that. I believe that as we ask God for things, we also, if we ask God for grace, for forgiveness, we got to do that with other people. And so these things I could express in music, and so I'm happy that that's the best thing in my life. If you were to ask me what's the best thing you have ever achieved in my life, is fighting for that relationship with God.
Amen.
That's it.
Yeah. Bro, man, this has been absolute pleasure, bro. Just for real, for real. First I want to really thank you for not just your heart, but also just your willingness to be able to give to the work that we're doing here. Yeah, man, it's it means a lot.
Oh yeah. And what you're doing, what I like about what you're doing is you're keeping it real. You're keeping it from the heart. It's not a prosperity thing. It's not, it's something where people need to learn about this podcast, or you know or the show, whatever people see it as, to really, the testimony is what really matters. And you can see that with the videos that you're posting. And you got to keep doing it, because the algorithm needs it.
Yeah.
A lot of people need it. And so I think that if there was to be a community, you would be the person to speak with. And your heart is in the right place. And like I was told, continue doing what I'm doing. I'm telling you the same thing, bro. Continue doing what you're doing, because if I was inspired to write this for your podcast, which is rare, that I do those things. But if I was inspired by the heart, the words that come out of your heart to do this, it's because there's something there. And I pray that God grants you all the desires of your heart, all the desires for your family, that this blows up to the point where you're gonna have to hire people, bro.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd love that, because
so
it'll alleviate some of the load
yeah.
from me.
But I'll be the first one to say, if you ever need anything that I can be a help, we're
Thank
here
you,
in the
brother.
same state. We're 40 minutes apart, and we can do this together. So whatever you need.
Likewise, bro.
So thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure. To me, this is the iron sharpens iron moment.
Yeah.
So hopefully, and the people that are watching, just the most important thing is to speak to God every day, morning, afternoon, night. Holy Spirit is also there. The gift that God has granted us. So the Holy Spirit and Jesus are fighting for us. So develop that relationship, and everything else will fall right in place.
Amen. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here in today's episode. I had an absolutely amazing time, and I hope that you guys enjoyed our conversation. Right now on the screen, YouTube is pulling up a video that it thinks you specifically would be interested. So I encourage you to watch it. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button or the like button or the comment button. Choose at least one button to hit, because it helps us to grow the channel and for more people to realize that this is content that could truly bless their life. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.